What's the
On record, 1020.
what's the basis for instructing the witness to not answer the question?
It is not relevant to this. You have a duty. What happened in December of 2019 has no relevance to this, and you have a duty to ask questions that are relevant. And what happened post-board after your client was gone and after time frame is not relevant. Anything else?
It's relevant because Sharon Provost is a witness in this case. There are other board employees and board members who are witnesses in this case, and it goes to the credibility of those witnesses.
I disagree. She's following my instructions. You can take it up with the judge.
Are you represented by counsel today, Ms. Provost?
I'm not Mrs. Provost.
I'm sorry. Are you represented by counsel today, Ms. Boyd?
Yes,
Yeah.
she is. She is a board member, and I am representing her.
Ms. Boyd, are you represented by counsel today?
Yes.
Do you know who Sharon Provost is?
Yes.
Who is she?
The office manager.
For Sterling Green.
Correct.
What are her job duties?
To supervise the office workers and maintenance people, run the office, make deposits.
Have you had occasion to interact with her as a board member?
Yes.
Can you describe your interactions with her?
Objection form. You can go ahead. I just have to do the objections for the record.
Okay. There was numerous.
Did you attempt to write her up on one occasion?
Yes.
And why did you attempt to write her up?
Because I was trying to get quotes on having two people bonded that was handling the money.
And who are the people that you were thinking about having bonded?
Sharon Provost and Ellie. Can't even think of her last name right now. What is it, Tony?
If you don't know, you can, if you don't know
Okay,
somebody's name.
I
you
can't
can
think of her last name.
Okay.
Hollebreck or something.
And why did you want to have them bonded?
Because they're handling money.
Did Ms. Provost object to being bonded?
Yes.
And did she explain why she objected?
She would explain it to me at a later date.
Did you ever obtain an understanding as to any other information as to why she might object to being bonded?
Not that I can recall.
To your knowledge, can she be bonded?
I don't know. I didn't get that far into the quotes.
And you interacted with Ms. Provost on multiple occasions, is that correct?
Yes.
Based on your interactions with her, do you consider her a trustworthy employee?
Objection form. You can answer the question.
Yes, I believe that she's trustworthy. I don't think she would steal anything.
Did you attend the meeting at which you were removed from the position of vice president?
I wasn't there evidently. I was told when I came in to the meeting in December.
Do you know, was the meeting at which you were removed from the board announced in advance?
No. You mean was the meeting announced?
Yes.
I will have to say I'm not for sure because in November I was sick with an infectious disease and was not allowed to be in public.
While you were on the board, was Sterling Green placed in receivership?
No, I was not on the board then.
Did that occur prior to you being on the board?
Yes.
And did you, while you were on the board, or even before then, obtain an understanding as to why it was placed in receivership?
Yes, I understand why.
Why was it placed in receivership?
Mainly because of all the Mrs. Malveaux being fired and Sharon informing a lot of us exactly what was going on and missing money.
When you say Sharon informed you of what was going on, what did she mean by the phrase? Did she explain? Let me rephrase that. When she said what was going on, did you have an understanding or obtain an understanding as to what that means?
Objection
Yeah.
form, go ahead.
Yes. Tom Olson was in there running the place by himself.
When you say he was running the place by himself, what do you mean by that?
He had let go, him and Sharon couldn't get along, so he wouldn't let Sharon in the office. So Cathy Hairbottle and Safe, I don't know what his last name is, were the only two in the office.
Did you have are you aware that Sharon Provost was fired by the board at one point?
I've heard that.
And thereafter, the board rehired her while you were on the board, is that correct?
Yes, we put her as office manager when we were voted in.
And
But she was still working at the, she wasn't working inside the office, but she was still working for HOA even during the receivership.
And did you ever inquire as to why she was removed from the office?
I never heard that from a reputable source.
Did you hear it from an unreputable source?
I heard it from several people.
And none of them were reputable?
Objection form, argumentative. Don't answer the question.
Who did you hear it from?
Numerous people.
What are their names? To the extent you can remember.
Well, Tom Olson, Cathy, mostly I read it on Next Door Neighbor. Because there's so many rumors that go on Next Door Neighbor website.
Sterling Green holds an annual election every March, is that correct?
That's correct.
And there was an annual election in March of 2018, correct?
Yes,
And it occurred at the annual meeting.
yes,
Did you attend that meeting?
yes I did.
Do you know who Susan Rice is?
Yes I do.
Did she attend that meeting?
I'm not sure. I don't remember that part.
Do you recall the results of the March 2018 election?
I know that Tom Olson was voted in.
Voted to a place on the board of directors.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a yes?
Yes.
Did you hear anyone at the March 2018 Board of Election meeting suggest or claim that Mr. Olson had not been properly elected to the board?
Yes.
Who?
Um, Sharon Provost, and there was a big uproar that day. There were several people saying he wasn't elected in properly. And I stated that, you know, we were supposed to have all of our proxies in that Friday beforehand, and I had an emergency. I had to leave town, and at that time I had the contact information for Tom, and I told Tom Olson, and I told him I wasn't going to be able to be there at that time, and he said to bring my proxy with me on Monday to the meeting.
What did you do with the proxy at the Monday meeting?
I gave it to Tom.
And you know the difference between a directed and an open proxy?
Oh, I'd have to probably do some research, but a directive I would think would be the individual themselves turning it in. Open would be giving it to a employee of the office and them turning it in.
Did you hear anyone at the election of, on the night of the election in March 2018, offer the opinion that Tom Olson had been properly elected to the board?
Well, of course. I mean, some of him and his friends, they were saying that it was legal.
Did you hear anyone who was not a friend of his make that observation?
Not really.
Did you, are there monthly meetings of the Sterling Community Membership?
Yes. The
At,
first Monday of every month.
at the monthly meetings of the membership that occurred in April and May and June and July, did you hear any further discussion as to, did you attend those meetings?
I attended some of them, but there was so much arguing and fussing going on that I left.
At the monthly meetings that occurred in April, May, June, or July of 18, did you hear anyone continuing to claim that Olson had not been properly elected to the board?
I heard it throughout the whole year.
Are you aware of any steps that the Sterling Green Board of Directors took between the day of the election in March 2018 and July 31, 2018 to invalidate Tom's election to the board?
Repeat the question?
Are you aware of any steps the Board of Directors took between the day of the election in March of 18 when Olson was elected to the board and July 31, 2018?
Yes.
What steps were those?
Well, for one, they went down and to the bank and withdrew the money and put it in a safer bank.
Who did that?
Linda Bass and Dorothy Malveaux, I believe.
And they were members of the Board of Directors at the time.
Yes,
Do you know what I mean by the term quorum?
yes.
What is a quorum necessary for Board of Directors meetings?
Majority of the vote.
And how many members of the Board of Directors are there?
5.
So does a quorum mean that there must be 3 or more votes at a Board of Directors meeting for the board to take action?
That is correct.
Did a quorum of the board remove the money that you referenced earlier from that bank
I
account?
wasn't on the board then. I'm not privy to that information.
When Dorothy Malveaux and Linda Bass claimed to act upon behalf of the board, just the two of them, I mean, was that a quorum?
That's really not a fair question because there was no boards working together. It was only Tom Olson trying to run it.
So does the quorum requirement not apply on all occasions?
Objection form. If you know.
As far as I know, it should always be a quorum. But like I said, I wasn't on the board at the time and I wasn't aware of what was going on during those meetings.
Do you know who Cathy Hairbottle is?
Yeah, I do.
Did she work for the board while you were on it?
She wasn't on the board. She worked for the Sterling Green HOA.
Okay. Did she work for the HOA while you were on the board?
No. Well, she was actually dismissed the first day I was on the board.
Did the board vote on that?
Yes.
Did you vote to dismiss her?
Yes.
And why did you vote to dismiss her?
Because I felt like Tom Olson had too much control over the employees and they would not go do as requested.
Does the board have an employment or a personnel file for Sharon Provost?
Yes.
Have you ever reviewed it?
No.
To your knowledge, how much have you interacted with Cathy Hairbottle?
Not very much.
To the extent you interacted with her, did she appear to be honest?
I really can't make that judgment because I haven't had enough conversations with her.
Okay. Prior to your deposition today, did you talk with anyone regarding your deposition?
Well, I mean, several people know that I was doing a deposition today.
Objection, non-responsive. My question is, did you talk with anyone regarding the deposition?
Yes, I guess.
And other than your attorney or the association's attorney, what are the names of the persons that you talked to?
You want all my family's name and everything? I'm not giving their names out.
With the exception of your family members, are there persons you spoke to regarding, and your attorneys, are there persons you spoke to regarding this deposition?
Yeah,
And what are the names of those persons?
the board members.
Did any of the other board members give you instructions regarding this deposition?
No.
Did any of the board members attempt to intimidate you in connection with this deposition?
No.
Do you know Tom Olson, is that correct?
Yes. Well, I know his name. Yes, I know that's him right there.
He's at the deposition today.
Yes.
And when was the first time, if you recall, that you met Tom Olson?
Before the election in 2018.
And Sterling Green has filed a lawsuit against Mr. Olson alleging he misused Sterling Green funds and devoted Sterling Green funds to personal use and wrongfully terminated Sterling Green contracts and wrongfully fired and hired persons. Sterling Green employees. Do you have any knowledge regarding those allegations?
Yes.
What is that knowledge?
Objection form. You asked her four different things, and then you said, what's that knowledge?
Okay, let's start with misusing funds. Do you have any knowledge regarding Mr. Olson misusing Sterling Green funds?
Yes.
What is that knowledge?
I saw him withdraw a lot of money, and I mean it was over $15,000-$20,000 that I can remember right this minute, out of our checking account to his own name.
And do you know what he did with that money?
No. I'd have to be living with him to know that.
Well, I asked you if you had knowledge of him misusing Sterling Green funds. You said you saw him. Did you see documents that indicated that he
I
was?
saw the canceled checks.
Okay. I assume then that if he misused those funds and devoted them to personal use, that you must be aware of that. Is that true or is that not true?
No, that is true.
You-
I mean, there was too much money missing out of the account.
Okay. Do you know whether the cash that he withdrew from the Sterling Green funds was ultimately tendered to Cathy Hairbottle?
I have no idea.
Okay. So, in fact, you
Why would
don't.
he give money to Cathy?
Cathy Hairbottle testified last week that he gave the money that he withdrew from Wells Fargo's, Sterling Green's Wells Fargo checking account to her.
For what?
Objection form, and that's mischaracterization of her testimony.
Okay.
She testified that he gave it to her and they kept it in a petty cash fund.
Why would you need that much money in petty cash?
My question is, do you dispute her
I
claim?
have no idea if that's the truth or not.
Okay. So,
Including her testimony, objective form.
do you have any knowledge as to whether Tom Olson wrongfully terminated Sterling Green contracts?
Yes,
And what is that knowledge?
with our security company. Then he brought on another one.
Okay, and the security company that he terminated was Unique Security?
Correct.
Were you on the board when Unique Security worked for Sterling Green?
No.
Do you know the extent to which, let me rephrase that. Do you know whether Sterling Green and Unique Security actually entered into a contract at one point?
I've been told they did.
Have you reviewed that contract?
No.
And do you know whether Unique Security carried out its obligations under the contract with regard to performing security at Sterling Green?
Objection form. It's a legal question in conclusion. You can answer to the extent of a layperson. You know.
As far as I know, yes.
Do you know what the grounds were for terminating Unique Security's contract?
Well, if someone isn't doing their services, yes.
Do you know whether they were in fact doing their services?
Yes.
And what's the basis for that statement?
Because I saw them around a lot more than I did the seal company that was hired afterwards.
There's been testimony that Unique Security officers who worked at Sterling Green on multiple occasions did not have money, or were not given money by their employer to put gasoline in their vehicles, and as a result they could not patrol the property. Do you have any knowledge as to whether or not that allegation is true?
No.
Do you know whether Tom Olson, was Susan Rice the association's attorney
When?
at any point?
Yes.
Do you have any knowledge as to whether Tom Olson consulted with Susan Rice at the time that Sterling Green terminated its contract with Unique Security?
No, I do not know. I was not on the board.
There's been testimony that Unique Security officers spent time in the Sterling Green office when they should have been out patrolling the neighborhoods at Sterling Green. Do you have any knowledge as to whether or not that's true?
Objection form, go ahead.
No.
Do you have any knowledge as to Tom Olson wrongfully terminating any other contracts of Sterling Green other than the one with Unique Security?
I'm trying to think. As far as a contract, no.
Do you have any knowledge as to Tom Olson or others associated with Sterling Green wrongfully terminating Sterling Green employees while Olson was on the board?
I don't know.
Do you have any knowledge as to
Well, you know what? Let me take that back, 'cause he did fire Dorothy Malveaux.
and do you know the grounds for terminating Malveaux?
No.
What position was she fired from?
Office manager?
And do you know how long she was office manager?
I don't remember exactly, probably somewhere around 6 years, I don't know.
As a Sterling Green member, did you have interactions with Miss Malveaux?
Yes.
Would you say they were frequent?
No, not hardly at all.
Did you have interactions with her while on the board?
While I was on the board?
Yes.
No.
Did you have occasion to inquire into the grounds on which Miss Malveaux was terminated?
No.
During the time you've been on the board, have you learned of any wrongdoing that Malveaux engaged in while she was manager?
Yes, I've heard of some.
As you sit here today, do you think that Tom Olson should not have fired Malveaux?
Objection form. You can- if you have
Not
an
really.
opinion.
No, he shouldn't have.
You don't think you should have fired her?
Nope. We had almost $1 million in our account at that time.
And were you aware the board voted to fire Malveaux?
No, because like I said, I wasn't on the board at the time.
Well, I wasn't asking you if you were on the board. I was just asking if you were aware that a quorum of the board voted to terminate her.
Objection form.
No.
Okay. When you say that the board had almost $1 million while Malveaux was manager, are you suggesting that amount has been reduced?
Drastically.
And do you think that reduction stems from wrongdoing?
Yes.
On whose part?
Tom Olson.
And what was his wrongdoing that caused the amount to be reduced?
Objection form. You can answer to the, whatever.
Well,
I'm objecting.
all the money being quite a bit of the money being withdrawn out of the checking account, money he spent, without any approval from the board.
And what was it reduced to from, I think you said earlier it had almost $1 million and it was reduced. What was it reduced to?
If I remember correctly, it was close to $657, something like that. Either, I'd have to, I don't know, quite a bit of it was gone. It was probably 600,000 left.
Have you ever attended board meetings at which the suit was discussed and an attorney was not present?
Objection form, and I'm instructing you not to answer the question at all.
Are you refusing to answer on the advice of your attorney?
Yes.
Who are the other board members that present?
Now?
Yes.
Well, you should know those by now. The Anthony Taft, Tony Lawrence, Ellie Pollock, Spencer Murphy, myself.
Sterling Green has produced a document in discovery that alleges Tom Olson made approximately $29,000 in unauthorized transactions. Have you seen that document?
No, I'm not seeing the document, but I believe it's probably more than that.
What's the basis for that belief?
Because of all the money that was missing.
Can you-
We cannot, there was no receipts furnished, nothing. They walked into that office and it was all, nothing but shredded paper on the floor.
Do you know who shredded them?
Have no idea.
Do you know if Tom Olson shredded them?
I have no idea.
Did Tom Olson give you a flash drive at one point?
Not that I can recall. What was it in regards to?
So you think that the transactions
You didn't answer my question.
that's because I'm not being deposed. You think that the transactions that Tom Olson, you think Tom Olson caused Sterling Green to lose more than $29,000, is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. How much did he cause Sterling Green to lose?
Objection form.
Over $300,000.
And what's the basis for that estimate?
Like I said before, we had $1 million, almost $1 million into the account. Then when he went in, and by August, we had dropped down significantly. And like I said a while ago, I don't remember if it was $400,000 or $500,000 or $600,000 that we were down to.
And do you know what those expenditures went to?
I have no idea.
Are there any other bases for your contention that Tom Olson caused Sterling Green to lose more than $300,000?
No.
Have you reviewed, during your time on the board, have you reviewed Sterling Green financial records for 2018?
No.
Have you reviewed Sterling Green financial records for 2019?
Some of them.
And have you ever had an occasion while on the board when you have wanted information regarding Sterling Green's finances?
Say that again?
Have you ever had occasion while you were on the board when you wanted information regarding Sterling Green's finances?
Yes.
And what did you do to get that information?
We would go to Sharon and get the information
And would she provide you with documents or just orally give you?
orally.
Did Tom Olson give you a login to the cloud-based storage for the Sterling Green corporate records?
Yes.
Did you use that
No.
information to access those records?
No.
Why did you not access those records?
Because I didn't trust them.
Do you have any knowledge of the independent audit performed by Joshua Williams in 2019?
Yes.
What is that knowledge?
Objection form.
I mean, we hired him and told him to do an audit.
Did you review his report?
Not the entire report, a portion of it.
And the part that you reviewed, did you understand it?
I had some questions.
And what were those questions?
I don't remember.
Did Joshua Williams represent himself as a CPA?
As an accountant,
He told you he was an accountant?
yes.
Would you be surprised to learn he's not an accountant?
Yes.
Do you know whose idea it was to hire Mr. Williams?
It was voted on by the board.
Objection, non-responsive. Do you know who recommended retaining Mr. Williams?
If I remember correctly, it was Walter Gant.
The report of Mr. Williams indicates that certain transactions that occurred while Olson was on the board were unauthorized. Do you know what the basis for the contention in his report that those transactions were unauthorized?
Well, as I previously stated, there was not a board functioning at that time. So anything that was done purely by Tom Olson's approval.
How many people were on the board when Olson was on the board?
5.
And when you say it wasn't functioning, what do you mean by that?
Because he wouldn't sit there and talk to the other board members. Because he was being such a bully that they wouldn't participate.
And were you, what's the basis for your claim that he wouldn't talk to the other board members?
Just what they told me. The board members.
What board members?
Dorothy Malveaux, Linda Bass, And that's all I can remember right now.
Did you talk to other board members to verify the claims of Ms. Malveaux and Ms. Bass regarding Mr. Olson's refusal to cooperate with them?
I didn't have to,
Why didn't you have to?
because there was too much on social media.
So instead of verifying the information they gave you, you believed what you saw on social media, even though you also already
No.
said that that was full
For
of
one thing,
rumors?
I could saw it on person and YouTube because Tom posted the videos.
Who were the other board members other than Olson, Malveaux, and Bass?
I don't really remember.
Did you ever reach out to those two members to verify the claims of Bass and Malveaux regarding Olson's non-cooperative approach?
I didn't have to, I saw it on video.
Objection non-responsive. Did you ever reach out to the other board members to verify the claims of Malveaux and Bass regarding Olson's non-cooperative approach?
No, I didn't have to, I saw it on video.
What did the video show?
Objection form.
You can go on YouTube and see them. They were there, still there as of, I don't know, 3 or 4 weeks ago. But it's the Sharon Provost walking in there, and Tony Lawrence, Ellie walking in there.
Are the actions depicted in the video, did they occur in 2019 or 2018?
18. Oh, let's wait. Yeah, 18.
Did those, is the footage in the video taken after Olson was on the board or while he was on the board?
While he was on the board.
And was Tony Lawrence on the board with Mr. Olson?
I'm not sure. I don't remember.
Was Gloria Cox on the board with Tom Olson?
Yes.
Did you ever speak to Ms. Cox about Olson's conduct?
Yes, I did.
And what did Ms. Cox say to you?
She verified just what we stated here. He was being a bully, he was spending money without approval.
Are you aware of a meeting on June 26, 2018, in which Malveaux, strike that. Did you attend the June 26, 2018 board meeting?
No, I was not on the board.
Can you identify the law firms that have performed work for Sterling Green in this case?
I don't know 'em, all of them by name.
And can you name any of them?
I can name 2 of the attorneys. I don't particularly know the name of their firm.
What are the attorneys' names?
Chris, I don't know, I can't think of his last name.
And the other
and
one?
Zach.
When did Zach, I mean by month, when did Zach perform work on the case that was filed by Sterling Green against Tom Olson?
2019.
And in what month in 2019?
I don't know. Can I take a break?
You
Yes.
can take a break anytime you like.